Today we're installing an ECS tuning Dogbone upgrade kit on this TT225. If your engine rotates excessively forward and backward, and it feels like there's a huge shift in weight whenever you throw in the clutch or let off the throttle, this part is likely in need of an upgrade. The easiest way to get to this part is to put the car on ramps and look between the transmission and the subframe. The first two bolts that you're going to want to take out are the ones connected to the subframe. Now, fair warning, these bolts like to seize, but thankfully on this car they were just fine. The purpose of this mount is to stop forward and backward movement, so when you remove these bolts, the engine's likely going to settle. The next two bolts you're going to want to take out are the ones connected to the transmission itself. Once these are out, the mount should be free to come out. The new mount uses a stiffer compound, adding rigidity, and it isn't worn, so it's actually a bit longer than the old mount. Both of these will combine to reduce the overall engine movement and provide a stiffer feel. The rest of the installation is really simple, and in fact it's the opposite of what we just did. So what we're going to do is line the Dogbone mount up and put the bolts into the transmission by hand threading them. Once both of the bolts are in, you want to use a socket wrench to tighten them just a fair bit more so that they hold their place, but don't torque them down yet. I'm moving the engine now to show you exactly what this mount prevents. When it gets worn, it's allowed to move more and more, so we want to replace this mount with something stiffer. Since the engine and transmission are freely hanging right now, you can't directly hand thread these bolts. What you have to do is press the engine and transmission up against the subframe, and then you can begin to thread them in. Just like we did last, what you want to do is take a socket wrench and get these just a little bit tighter so that they're ready to be torqued down. For my torque wrench, I'm using a Harbor Freight Special, specifically their click-style torque wrench. These wrenches basically let you set a specific torque you want to hit, and once it hits that, they'll make a loud clicking noise to let you know. This is important. The specific torque rating for each one of these bolts will be different depending on what specific make and model car you're doing this to. Look it up. For a 2002 TT225 Quattro, the specific ratings are 20 Newton meters or 15 foot-pounds for both of the bolts connected to the subframe. For both of the bolts connected to the transmission, it's 40 Newton meters or 30 foot-pounds. That pretty much wraps up this installation. As always, it's a good rule of thumb to test drive the car after you install the parts and make sure that everything feels good. My Dogbone mount was pretty worn, so when I changed it, I noticed crisper shifts and the engine swayed a lot less whenever I threw in the clutch or let off of the throttle. This is an upgrade I would highly recommend.